All right, so I'll just wait for a few people to show up here. So before we start the live stream, and I'll go ahead and make sure that everything is on the up and up. Make sure there's no audio issues here. All right, we got some people coming in the chat here. How's the audio sound? First things first, let's check the audio. I'll wait before I get some feedback. Loud and clear. Good to hear. Yes, we continue to get closer to these upcoming events. You can see the atmospheric river already gearing up across the Pacific Ocean right now. Nice looking storm out there. And we've got a very powerful jet stream that's also going to bring a fairly windy solution for some areas here as we go on in through the day Saturday, as well as some thunder potential here for some portions of the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, we got some blustery conditions, a lot of rainfall incoming here, and looks like we're going to stay active probably on in through early November. Watching from Whidbey Island, Hoodsport, Tenasket, Granite Falls, Burien. Nice. The other Vancouver. I sound like myself. That must be an okay thing. Forbes Mercy, I can hear you cheese over in Eastern Washington. Yeah, there's the next atmospheric river up. You can see it out there on the infrared satellite. Bring it on. Victoria, Eugene, Ocean Park. Already 250 people in the chat. Pretty nice. Marysville, Squim, Lake Goodwin. Seattle in the house, Northeast California. Yeah, there's going to be some of this activity getting down into Northern California as well. Looks like a couple low pressure centers might be taking aim later this weekend at California also. So going to get a 1, 2, maybe a 3 shot there for portions of California, and something similar here up across the Pacific Northwest. Some big precipitation totals showing up. In fact, let's dive into a little bit of that here, shall we? Let's see. That's the 15-day artificial intelligence, but let's back that up. So as we go through the day tomorrow, there's Thursday morning. That's about 11 a.m. right there. You can see it really taking aim at some of Vancouver Island. When you see the reds there, you're up over 2 inches already. There's Thursday afternoon. There's Thursday night. That's about 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And look at some of those totals across Western British Columbia and Vancouver Island. And we got to wait all the way on in through Friday morning before some of that starts to move down across portions of Western Washington. You can see the Olympic Mountains piling it up pretty good there as well. And Seattle, by the time you get to Friday afternoon, shows 7/10 of an inch of rain. And I'm just going to kind of play this out a little bit here. And you just see these totals kind of steadily increase as we go towards the end of the month. And we get some additional systems maybe after that. And then a little bit, there's some breaks in there too. I mean, it's not going to be just a washout the whole time, but you can clearly see by the time we get on in towards, early November, you're looking at Seattle with some pretty big amounts. And Western BC, look at some of these ridiculous totals. I mean, 14, 15, 16 inches of precipitation. Even the Olympic Mountains up over 10 inches of precipitation there as well. And the lightning expert, thank you for your generosity. Everett wins. Well, okay, let's take a look at that. I got Boeing Field up here, so let's just go ahead and make another one. We're going to go ahead and go to Payne Field. And the last European model run, this one's hot off the press, is 18Z. Everett was at 43 miles per hour, but also look at some of these gusts. There's still some ensemble members, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 out of 50. I mean, that's about a 30% chance of a 50 mile per hour gust. And look at ensemble, this is ridiculous. Ensemble member number 34. So let's do this. We're going to go And we're going to go to check out this individual ensemble member here. And we got to go to free zoom and we got to back out and we got to zoom back in. Then we go to switch members here. And which member did I say? Did I say 34? I did. This is not an overly strong storm, but still, sometimes these well-placed lows can still be quite dramatic. And let's put parameters to mean sea level pressure. And let's take a look at this ensemble member. So as you, let me back that up a little bit there. As you go through the day on, let me back that up a little bit more. You can see as we're going through the day tomorrow, you notice this pressure gradients here. So we're going to have some decent winds for some of the coastal areas. And this is also going to bring some large waves to the coastline here as we go through the day tomorrow. More on that here in a little bit. We'll go over some of that. There's a high surf advisory, in fact, for some of the Washington coast. Let me back up here. You can see the high surf advisory is in effect for some of the Washington coast. Let me go down towards Portland. Do we have anything there? We got some beach hazard statements right now, but yeah, we're gonna have some big waves on the coastline here as well. High surf advisor, if I click on that, breaking waves 22 feet, and this goes on in through Friday morning, but also they should probably keep that going a little bit longer because we are gonna have some wave action going on in through the day Friday, and then we're gonna pick things up again on Saturday. So let's take a look at that low here, and you can see that's not a bad low, a 981 millibar low, and you can see the tight gradient here on the southeast side of that. And yeah, you can see decent pressure rise as we go on in through the day. Saturday, some point Saturday night, but yeah, that would bring a pretty good wind here across some of the Puget Sound. I mean, yeah, it's showing up. It shows a 70 mile per hour gust in that case, 72 actually. But the control run had 43, which is still decent, and that may bring some power outages of its own. Yeah, I've not heard much about the fires in Eastern Washington. I think we're doing a lot better. And plus, we're not going to be dealing with the big smoke plumes or anything like that from this point on. So we're pretty good on that front. But yeah, we've got a few storms coming up here. Let me show you where we are now. I showed the infrared satellite imagery to start off. This is our next atmospheric river out here across the Gulf of Alaska. That's going to be rolling into BC, eventually sliding down across Washington and Oregon. Then we've got another system that's back here way south of the Aleutian Islands. It's going to bring some windy conditions, some big waves with that, and then potential additional systems next week. So if we take a look at this jet stream, this is hot off the press of the 18Z. In fact, I don't even think I've looked at this one yet. But there's the atmospheric river pushing in, and we go on in through the day tomorrow, and there's Friday showing up there. And this is the windy period right here as we go through the day on Saturday. As this jet stream is pushing through, this time is going to be where we get that low pressure system moving through. And you can see the jet stream continues to be pointed at the west coast of North America. And then there's another storm out here, as you can see, that's developing as we go on in through the early to mid portion of next week. The lightning expert says, do you think there'll be any high wind warnings? I think there'll probably be some wind advisories if I had to bet. I don't think there'll be high wind warnings up from what we see right now. I would think that there'll probably be some wind advisories because as I showed you briefly here, this is Boeing Field, 49 miles per hour. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 ensemble members have 49 or higher, 48 or higher, 17. So that's a problem because we're in the early season of fall where we still have a lot of leaves on trees. Some leaves have started to fall, but there's still quite a bit of leaf action on these trees, and they like the sails, and they can bring down branches onto power lines, and they can down some of those trees. So this would probably be, a pretty, you'd almost certainly have some power outages if you hit 50 miles per hour. Is La Nina ramping up or is it neutral? So we can also take a look at that. Let me do this here real quick. We're going to go to so this was updated here on October 20th on Monday. And if you jump down here, you can see a Nino 3.4. We are technically in La Nina conditions right now. When you hit negative 0.5, you're in La Nina conditions. To be officially classified as a La Nina, you need this. And we're going to scroll down and see that. You need a 5-month running period there of a La Nina conditions. And you see last year, we hit it for December, we hit it for January, but we didn't hit it for the other. We needed 3 more months. We didn't quite get there. It wasn't that far off. If November would have been just a 1/10 of a degree colder and February 1/10 of a degree and maybe a few more tenths there on March, we would have hit it there. But you need that 5-month running total. But right now we are negative 0.6. So we are colder across the equatorial Pacific than we were at this time last year. Garrett Hartung in the house. There is, yeah, that's actually a good question. Somebody mentioned bomb cyclone. So let me do this. I'm going to go to Oceanic and we're going to go to Gulf of Alaska here real quick. I want to see what the 18Z shows here. I think we might have to go to the artificial intelligence, but there's the system as we go on in through Saturday. You can see it right there. And then there's going to be another storm that develops out here that's looked like it was deepening pretty quick, but that's not far enough out on that. We're going to go to the artificial intelligence. And we'll back this up. So if we start there, you can see 1005 millibar low, and we go 6, 12. So that's 20 millibars right there, 18 hours. That's a bomb cyclone right there. But that's kind of far away at that point. It stays pretty deep as it gets towards Vancouver Island. So this could bring some windy conditions, and you got to watch the track on this one over the next few days. But it does weaken as it gets towards the BC coastline. Know that it's still a fairly decent gradient on the south side of that storm. But yeah, that would technically be classified as a bomb cyclone out there. In just 6, 12, 18 hours, you're dropping off by what, 27 millibars. So that would classify for sure. So yeah, La Nina is officially, it's kind of ramping up here. The atmospheric river is coming both tomorrow on for BC, then on Friday it starts moving down across Washington, Oregon. The windy period will be on Saturday, and then after that we're not quite sure just yet, because it looks like a system may be moving into Northern California and some of Southern Oregon here as well. In fact, let me bounce out here and we're going to take a look at what precipitation gets shown. So there's the atmospheric river. This is tomorrow late morning, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. We go to very early Friday morning. There's on the day Friday. There's Friday afternoon, Friday night. And then you see that storm system moving in as we go through the day on Saturday. And then we bring that another sneaky system down into Southern Oregon, Northern California as we're going on in through Sunday night, on in through Monday. Little bit of a break here. Big storm develops out over our coastal waters here, and we'll just kind of watch that one right now. You don't want to get too caught up in that geostatic, especially that very powerful low, but it looks like it's just far enough away from the big population centers where it would not cause huge wind, but you got to watch that closely. Any lightning? We could get some lightning post-frontal showers on Saturday. Jonas Miller is back. Jonas Miller in the house. He's in it for the money, not the science. Thanks for the generosity, sir. And yeah, so let's take a look at that as well. Why don't we zoom in a little bit? We're going to go to severe weather, and I want to see what the latest European had for lightning flash density potential. So Saturday is what I mentioned. So let's see. You can see that colder air arriving behind the frontal system on Saturday. You do see there is some lightning potential even across some of Western Washington on the day Saturday. Some of the Oregon coast looks like it's highlighted there as well. So there is a little bit of lightning potential, but it's not going to be too widespread. We're not looking at an outbreak of hundreds of lightning strikes across the region or anything like that. It would just be a few lightning strikes. What does the dirt say? Well, you better sniff the dirt before it gets wet here, because after a couple of weeks, the dirt around your house is going to be kind of muddy. Okay, let's catch up on some of this chat here a bit. Yeah, Pineapple Express is a name for an atmospheric river. So if I bounce things out here, it's kind of a common question, actually. And you can see the Hawaiian Islands down there, and we'll go to surface moisture and precipitable water, for example. So if we take a look at this one here, you can see this one coming tomorrow. This one developed, well out towards the Western Pacific here. But sometimes these line up where they look like they're coming from the Hawaiian Islands directly, and that's why meteorologists will call them Pineapple Express. This one, you wouldn't classify it as a Pineapple Express. It's just another name for an atmospheric river, though. Razor clams soon and sneaker waves are a real. Yeah, somebody got swept away on the Oregon coast. I saw those headlines coming out. People started commenting on my video yesterday or the day before, and a 43-year-old woman was swept out, and somebody was trying to save her and almost got swept out as well. And they found her apparently 4 miles away, and she had been killed by a sneaker wave. So yeah, not good. Yeah, you could call it the Panda Express if you wanted. You can see this one all the way back, wherever the origination might be. Sometimes they look like they're coming from China or the Philippines or wherever. I mean, this almost looks like it's coming from Japan a little bit or just off the coastline, so you can call it the Sushi Express. I mean, whatever. It's just a name for an atmospheric river. Tuesday could be a bumpy ride. Well, Tuesday you might be on the break there on Tuesday though. Tuesday morning right there. You might sneak in before that next storm starts ramping up. You can see that next strong storm out there. You can also see Saturday's system right there. Well, active October doesn't see anything really per se. And there's so much information that goes on out there about La Nina and El Nino and whatnot. And really, there is variability a lot of times between between La Ninas. Yeah, I wouldn't expect this La Nina to be just like last year's La Nina, for example. So I do like to talk about it sometimes, but I don't like to get caught up too much in it and what it means for the winter months. I'll look at the Climate Prediction Center stuff, but a lot of times that isn't that accurate. You're really trying to read tea leaves. Thanks for streaming. What are the chances for storms this weekend? Because I just got here. Yeah, I mean, there's atmospheric river coming. We got some big precipitation amounts coming up. As you can see, if I back this up, here is where we end things on Tuesday afternoon. Pretty good shot of precipitation for a lot of the West Coast. And we also have some windy conditions coming in here as well. If you're across some of Washington State, look at some of these winds. Because you're talking about Boeing Field showing up around 49 miles per hour. That's going to be problematic if you get those kind of winds through Seattle. Again, as I mentioned, you got a lot of trees on leaves. And some of the coastal areas showing up over 50, 55 miles per hour. So there's bound to be some wind advisories out for this if this continues. Washington Weather Chasers in the house. Ben Yurkovich. Yeah, and there's always inter-season variability. Like Garrett Hartung is mentioning, there's going to be, it's almost certainly not going to be like last year's La Nina. You'll have differences. The Madden-Julian oscillation comes into play. So that's why I really like doing videos on a daily basis. I just kind of like to look to see what is coming and just stay on top of things, because you can get a pretty good read on what's potentially coming 10 days out. You can kind of prepare for it. Sometimes the rug gets pulled and the storms don't happen, but at the same time, at least you know what potentially could be coming. But I mean, you really got to ask yourself, what am I going to do with information about what's potentially coming in February right now? There's very little that you could do about it. And I mean, what would you do about it? That's just something that's 4 months away, and you kind of want to know, is it going to be snowy? Well, yeah, there's a chance that you might get snow in February during La Nina. Is it going to be, a light dusting? Are a few places going to get hit, or is it going to be a widespread snowfall event? Same thing goes with January and December. So it's fun to look at what's coming this winter. It's just, you got to be careful with that messaging. Ryan Voltalainen is in the house. Yeah, the rain train is coming in. Finally, we're getting that rain. That's something I forgot to look at here today as well. Let's go to Western US, and we're going to go to precipitation, departure from average percent. We'll go over the last, let's do 90 days. So yeah, we're still running a pretty hefty deficit, Western Washington, Western Oregon. Let's go 60. Yeah, I mean, places like Seattle, you're between 25 and 50%. And we need some rainfall here. Let's do this. I'm going to zoom in on Washington a little bit here. Man, look at Tacoma. Between 5 and 25%. Goodness, right on the King Pierce County border. And some of the east slopes of the mountains there, 5 to 25%. Some of eastern Washington, though, not doing too bad, relatively speaking. But again, it doesn't take a lot of precipitation east of the mountains to skew those numbers more. All right, Ryan's out. See you, Ryan. And always remember, you know, watch these windstorms when you come in. You can really learn something about your locations. Because a lot of times people will see these windstorms coming, and even in the bigger windstorms, sometimes you're not getting a lot of wind because you're in a sheltered area, or you're in a west-east valley, or you're on the north side of a hill. So you're kind of in a sheltered location versus, like, I live near the Puget Sound and I'm kind of on a southwest facing slope. And so I tend to get big winds, and there are other areas that are like that as well. Places near the water. And again, if you're on hilltops or exposed areas, but some places, even during big windstorms, you don't get that much wind. You can still get tree damage and things like that. But yeah, it's good to know exactly where you live and what your elevation is, and if you're in a sheltered area. So if you just moved here, it's good to kind of know those things. Yeah, I was wondering about that European. So I had 1 inches for Seattle on Friday. Will the streak end? Go 680 plus days without 1 inch in Seattle. That's pretty notable. I expect there'll probably be a few power outages on Saturday if I had to bet. With the leaves on the trees here in October, I would probably lean towards there being some power outages. I wouldn't expect 100,000 people being without power or anything like that, but I think there will be some. Thanks for generosity, Lightning Expert. Yeah, I've seen some of those winter charts where the cold air goes east of the mountains, kind of QBO negative stuff. It's definitely a possibility. We've definitely, that's not an unusual winter here, where sometimes we just don't get cold air back into the Pacific Northwest. I hope that's not the case, but I have seen those. Yeah, kite surfers. Might not be a bad day on Saturday if you're willing to brave some pretty gusty winds. Yeah, and tomorrow's going to have a little bit of a punch as well. Let's look at some of that. You can see some of those 40-mile-per-hour gusts coming across some of the Northwest interior there. And actually, let's look at the North American model. I'm going to back this out a little bit also. Let's go to Pacific Northwest, and we'll go to 80-meter wind speed. Oh, we got the North American model running right now as we speak. So here we go. You can kind of see winds pick up as we go through the day tomorrow for Vancouver Island. You can see them kind of creeping. And there's the Strait of Georgia also. Southeast winds, see those? Starts really ramping up as you go through, morning hours, noon, early afternoon, still picking up. And then you can see that come across some of the San Juans, maybe Whidbey Island starts to get gusty up towards Bellingham. The Washington coast getting a bit gusty there as well. Thursday night. And you can really see the edge of that atmospheric river as it pushes down to the south. But look, it really peak out there across some of the Northwest interior on Friday morning. Pretty darn right windy there. Not bad. I mean, you're talking about 34 knots sustained at 80 meters up. Yeah, we need snowpack, definitely. Dan's Backcountry mentioned that for sure. 600 people in the chat. Nice. Thanks, guys. Click the thumbs up so people can, it'll get, YouTube will get the word out the more we do that. More thumbs up come in, people get the word out. So we're running the North American model, high resolution. Oh, we get pretty windy there on Friday there, early morning. Not really too early in the morning there, but yeah, ramp those winds up pretty good on Friday morning. And something else, actually, I'm just going to go to the 12K and we're going to move out a little bit more here. This is running hot off the presses here too. So it'll be a bit breezy there on the Oregon, southern Washington coast as you go through the day of Friday. And then you can just see that next storm system developing out there. We'll give that a little bit longer here. Is this a severe storm? This is not a severe storm when you're taking into account convection or anything like that. I mean, some places could get severe wind gusts of 58 miles per hour. Probably you're talking about higher terrain, maybe a coastal area getting a 58 mile per hour gust, but we're not looking at big hail or tornadic activity or any kind of convection, if that's what you mean. Because a lot of times when people say severe storms, they mean convective weather. So no, I wouldn't say it's a severe storm. It's not even a major windstorm here for the Pacific Northwest, but it can definitely get your attention. And it doesn't have to be a major windstorm to do damage or to even injure or kill people. You can have big snags falling out of trees at this time of year, and a lot of leaves again are on trees, and those act as sails. Yeah, we're getting some heavy rain before the wind comes through also. That is a little bit of another additional factor like Garrett mentions. So yeah, Friday, showing up pretty windy on the coast Friday in the NAM. Look, I mean, look at that. Right on the coast, you're getting some 50 mile per hour gusts there. We'll see what that shows as we get further. I don't like looking at the North American 12-kilometer model for this stuff, but it's like whatever. That's all we got running right now. Check out the Bear Gulch. Yeah, send me some pictures of that if you got it. So I think this AR could be Cat 4 or Cat 5. I think did I have it on here? Let's see. There we go. The excessive rainfall outlook was mentioning Cat 3. So let's go to the European. It has some Cat 3 and some Cat 2. It has Cat 4 up into BC. So, which makes sense with when you look at those rainfall totals. You might categorize this as a category 4, but you can see how this really varies between locations. Cat 2 for most of Vancouver Island, most of the Washington coast, and you got Cat 3 with the yellow there. So it depends. It's not just like a Cat 4 atmospheric river rolls across the entire area. You got different ratings there for individual areas. $650 people in the chat. Welcome everybody. Click thumbs up. Gets the word out. More people on YouTube, and we can get the word out to more people. Also wanted to mention this. There's some cooler air moving in. You can kind of see the atmospheric river as it passes through on Friday. Then we start to get that colder air arriving. There's that windy system on Saturday. You can see it ramping up out there. And as that goes through on and through the day Sunday, seeing that colder air aloft, you could bring down some of these snow levels to some of the higher foothills and stuff across some of Western Washington, British Columbia. So you got to watch out for that. And if I take a look at that as well, and we go to surface winter and we go to positive snow depth change in inches, you can kind of see that tease out across some of the lower foothills there. I mean, you're getting into the coastal range. It's still just October. So I think Willapa Hills, the Olympic Mountains getting a nice dusting of snow out there as well. So if we zoom in on, let's go to Washington State, because this will show portions of Oregon also. And you can kind of see that off into the foothills a little bit. Look at that sketch at Whatcom County. That moves out. I mean, there might be some resolution issues with that. It is fairly high resolution, but you can see that into some of the foothill areas. And Snoqualmie Pass, maybe getting a couple inches on the I-90 there, and Stevens Pass as well. I mean, you're talking 6-7 inches by the time you get on in towards, really, if I back that up, you're talking that falls mainly by the day on Sunday. When is the peak of the storm start? Well, it depends on if you mean rain or wind, because the rain's coming down Thursday, Friday, and then the wind comes on Saturday. Actually, there's wind on Friday too. So yeah, the precipitation is going to be moving in across much of the region on Friday though. Thanks for all the kind words, everybody coming in. I see we got like 670 people in the chat. Nice to see it. Close that one out. And again, we got some high surf advisories already out for the Washington coast. Glad to see the National Weather Service Seattle putting that out. If I were them, I'd probably just keep this extended through the weekend, because there's going to be not much of a break as we go from Saturday into Friday. Let me reword that. They say it's going to back off by Friday morning, but watch what happens. So first things first, here we go. This is tonight, and you can kind of see pretty benign across the Washington, Oregon coast. Not big wave action, but then as you get those yellows in there, you start to bring up those waves, and then you can see there's the orange. Now we're starting to bring them up as we go on in through tomorrow night, and pretty big wave action going on here by the time we're on into Friday morning. And really, it backs off maybe a hair, but really not that much. And then we bring the next system in here, and look at that set of wave action moving into the Oregon coast. My goodness. Thinking about going down to Shore Acres there on the day Saturday. And yeah, some pretty good waves rolling in there. Another way you'll see this put out is also maximum individual wave height. Tongue twister. So here we'll back up a little bit there. And then again, as we go through the day tomorrow onto Friday morning, you see we're not getting much of a break before the next big set of waves comes in on the day Saturday for much of the Oregon up into the Washington coastline there. So maybe they'll just keep that high surf advisory out all through the weekend. First time joining a live stream, welcome. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bear Gulch fire had some smoldering, maybe if you were digging around out there, but it hasn't produced smoke for a long time now, not that I've seen. And let's just run through that just for the heck of it, because I've seen a couple of people ask about the fires. Let's just do this. I mean, it shows, I don't know what this stuff is. This has got to be some kind of noise here. I don't know what this is. But yeah, I mean, the big plumes of smoke and stuff is really done for the year here across the region. Should I fly my drone this weekend? Well, if you can find a nice break in the rain, then definitely. Depending on what kind of drone as well. Some of those small drones take a beating in a strong wind. Is there any chance of wind or snow for north of Spokane? So take a look here. So as we go on in through, as we go through Saturday night into Sunday morning, you can see a little bit there across Northeast Washington. It even shows a little bit getting down into, I mean, you're talking about, this is towards Ritzville. That's an inch or two right there. That's pretty notable. And you might be seeing some flakes mixed in around Spokane as you go through Sunday night. So yes, there is that potential. And as we go on in towards Sunday night, you can kind of even see that it's teased off across some of the higher foothills there of Western Washington, and a decent amount of snow for the Cascades. Snoqualmie Pass getting a little bit, Stevens Pass getting more. There's the Olympic Mountains right there. Some of the coastal range of Oregon even showing up with a little bit. Yeah, but top Gorilla VR, that is, yes, there is some potential for that. It doesn't look like a huge amount, but it doesn't take much. Yeah, as you can see, as we go on into late Sunday night into Monday morning, you drop right around freezing there for some areas. Western Washington weather in the house. Good evening from Federal Way. DJI Mini Pro 4. I heard those are pretty good. If you want to really fight the wind, you get a Mavic, but kind of expensive. Puget Sound Stormwatch in the house. Could a bomb cyclone occur off the coast in summer months? It could. It's theoretically possible. And really any mid-latitude cyclone, depending on just what kind of parameters it's dealing with and what time of year, can produce tornadoes here. They're generally of the weak and brief variety, though. I'm going to grab some water real quick, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. My throat got really dry there all of a sudden. Too much talking, I guess. So yeah, those of you just joining, this is the next atmospheric river up. You can see it moving across the Gulf of Alaska. Back here somewhere is where our next windstorm is, way back to the west. Mid-wind storm. We're not talking about a huge region-wide windstorm, but it is going to get windy for some locations. We have the potential for some power outages as well. We're also in La Nina conditions right now. This update was on Monday, October 20th. So we are going to be in weak La Nina at some points here going on in through the early portion of the winter. And we have a couple model runs going here. Let's go ahead and jump back to those. Where did I have them? There we go. So we're going to take a look at this. And we're going to look at the latest North American model. So this is running as we speak, hot off the presses on the left. Let's take a look and just kind of compare pressure. And you can see we tighten the pressure gradient up. We're going to get a bit windy here as we go through the day on Friday for some of the coastal areas. You can see that pressure gradient get tight, deep low up across the Gulf of Alaska. We go on into Friday and you can see our next storm system ramping up there. It's coming in a bit deeper here. That's kind of interesting. Big differences there between the 18Z North American model, 992 millibar low, 998. It's kind of a big difference. You can see there's a pretty good pressure gradient to Northern California of what, 20 millibars on this one here. You're talking about, I mean, you're talking about 14. So yeah, it's coming in a little bit different there. So kind of an interesting change there on the 0Z model runs there with the North American. So 12 km. Yeah, that's a substantially stronger low pressure. This would definitely bring a stronger blow towards the Oregon coastline there. And that's the thing about these windstorms here. You know, sometimes they come in deeper and that pressure gradient is tighter than what models say, or sometimes these models start throwing you wrinkles like this as you get closer to the event. Yep, weather radios are good to have for sure. You can get the crank variety where you don't even have to have them charged, or if you don't have a battery, you can actually crank the radio to play back for you. La Nina typically means below normal temps and above normal precipitation. It tends to be the years where we get the most snow, but that's not always the case. There's always interseasonal variability that goes on here. So there's a lot of moving parts to our forecast here as we go through the winter months. So La Nina is just one of them. It's a pretty good indicator of what you're going to get overall, but still, there can be big variability. Could it get gusty tomorrow in Everett? Well, let's see. Let me take a look here. So we had Boeing Field. We have Payne Field right here. You're talking about some gusts in the upper 20s to low 30s probably. Maybe a little bit strong. You could get one a little bit strong, but the mean is probably in the lower 30s there. The lightning expert. And then the windier period, though, is coming on the day Saturday. As you can see here, the ensemble mean is up into the 40s. And there's, again, like I mentioned before, there's some bigger gusts showing up in those individual ensemble members. This is Boeing Field there in Seattle. Also, quite a few members with a pretty substantial wind gust there. I mean, the control run had 49 miles per hour. That would cause some problems. That's a pretty strong wind with leaves on trees. And we were taking a look at atmospheric rivers also, and you can kind of see that categorized as the Cat 4, maybe across portions of BC, Cat 2 or 3, Washington, Oregon coast. Maybe a Cat 1 all the way down towards, well, Cat 2 towards the Bay Area, maybe in a little bit further south, Cat 1. It'll probably be a bit breezy in Bothell on Saturday. Dipster79, thanks for the generosity, sir. You guys make this channel click. Everett in the house. Western Washington weather. We had a storm October 13th, 2020. Similar strength to the 18Z Euro. Had over 50,000 outages for, yeah, these early season storms, especially if they come in a little stronger, they can cause problems. 980 millibar low. That's pretty strong storm. But what matters even more is the gradient on the south side. So this 988, we had a 989 millibar low, something like that, move right up the Puget Sound, and it brought my biggest gust I've ever got at my house, 60 miles per hour with a 989. But that's a wicked signal there. I mean, the Willamette Valley would really have to watch out for this, because you're looking at 992. That's 24 millibars here from Southern Oregon up to, right on the Washington border. That is an impressive gradient. That is absolutely wild, actually. You can see the difference in the pressure gradient here. These are 4 millibar isobars here. That is an intense pressure gradient across Western Oregon. That would be absolutely rocking there for Western Oregon. Yeah, 988 millibar up the sound, 60 miles per hour, huge waves on the Puget Sound. It doesn't have to be a deep low. Like this 992 millibar low, that is a power-packed pressure gradient right there. This is much more impactful than a 979 millibar low that's further north, and this pressure gradient is not nearly as strong across Willamette Valley. But that's a very impressive storm right there for Western Oregon. Can we get hurricane force winds? Probably not with this storm. Maybe across some of the higher terrain or something, you might get some kind of crazy gust like that, but you'd have to be pretty high up. So probably not this round, no. Thanks for the generosity, lightning expert. Yeah, so how far south is Eugene? 4 or 8. This is what you're looking. Are we looking at 10 millibars here or even more? 12? So like Garrett Hartung says, above 10 millibars Portland to Eugene is a big time pressure gradient. But yeah, you can get hurricane force winds on other storms for sure. And again, it depends on where you are, what kind of wind you're going to get. Because like right here, if you're in Shelton, Washington, you're not going to be getting much wind. There's no pressure gradient there. You're on the north side of the low. Once that low moves through and you start bringing the pressure rise, then it will get gusty. But you look for the strongest pressure gradient, and that is just absolutely ripping there across Western Oregon. In fact, let's do this. This will give you a little bit better idea of what's going on. So this is the run just 6 hours ago here on the right. This is the run hot off the presses there. And we don't have it all in yet, but let's go ahead and play through this. Here's the atmospheric river moving down. It's going to get a bit blustery on the coastline here. Some gusts up to 50 are possible for the coastal areas as you go through the day on Friday. And then there's the next storm developing out here. And you can kind of see it's a bit stronger than it was on the last run. And look at some of these winds in the bent back occlusion. You're talking about sustained winds in knots at 925 millibars of 66 knots. That's sustained of over 70 miles per hour out over the open ocean there. Gets even stronger Saturday morning. And look at the coastal area there too. I mean, goodness. You're talking about 65 knots maybe sustained just off the surface. And that's the deal with the North American model here on Weather Bell. Sometimes when you click the different parameters, the model run is not. But you can clearly see, look at the differences in the strength of the storms here between just the run 6 hours ago and the run now. Pretty downright big differences here. Now, we can also do this. We can look at the North American 3 kilometer. That's not what we want. We want that one. And we're going to do the 18Z here as well. And we're going to go bounce out. And we're going to go to wind speed. Actually, let's do pressure first. I love watching these lows come in, especially when they're well placed. They don't have to be 980 millibar lows. They don't have to be 970 millibar lows. They can pack plenty of punch with much weaker storms. So you can see that on the North American model, that storm is definitely coming in stronger, deeper low. And a pretty good pressure gradient on the southern side of the storm. I mean, the North American model sometimes is not bad, and I continue to use it. It's just another tool. There is some chance for winds here in Western Washington, yes. And no, this is not a massive impact storm. I mean, it depends on how you define massive impact, though. I mean, if a tree falls on your house, is it massive impact? Because there's that potential with these early season storms. Big branches, the power could be out. You know, you got to be careful when these systems roll in. Okay, here we go. Now I think we got it locked in here. So, yeah, I mean, look at this. Look at the wind just off the surface there. You're bringing sustained winds of 55 knots. And if we go down a bit lower, we'll go to, actually, let's do this. But yeah, you can see the difference between the strength of the storm just in these runs. I mean, look at that bent back occlusion. You're talking about gusts over 75 miles per hour out of the open water, gusts potentially 60 on the coast, and then you're looking at some mid 50s. That would be quite destructive if we got 55 miles per hour in the Willamette Valley. Maybe not destructive. That would be very strong. That would do some damage probably. Yeah, and like even with the last bit of wind that we had over the last week or so, I noticed like there was new growth stuff down. So there's still like green leaves on trees and stuff at this time of year. I mean, yeah, there's stuff to be taken down for sure. Or they can get knocked down. Let's do this. And yeah, if that little low moves across, you can see Eastern Oregon getting pretty hammered here as well. But yeah, interesting low. The strongest portion of it, you can clearly see where it comes in on the 0Z model there. Now, with that in mind, let's do this. We'll bounce out a little bit more. We'll go to northwest. Now we're comparing the European versus itself. This is the latest European. You can see the pressure gradient tighten on the day Friday. And we wait for that next storm. Came in a little bit lower, as you can see. A little bit more of a little stronger storm there. Stronger pressure gradient. Now, the North American model brings that bent back much closer and stronger winds across the interior. You can see the low pressure stays a little bit further off the coastline there. So that's something to be watching over the next day or two as we try to pinpoint just where the strongest winds are going to occur. AC Cool, thanks for the generosity. Where do I get info from? All kinds of stuff. I look at these weather models here. I watch satellite imagery, pay attention to what usually happens at this time of year. Can give you a good idea of what could potentially happen. There's lots of tools. National Weather Service is a good place to start. 730 viewers in the house. Nice. Thanks for the thumbs up, everybody. Atmospheric River and Pineapple Express is the same thing. It's just somebody giving a name to an atmospheric river. It can be both Pineapple Express and an atmospheric river. Technically, scientifically, it's known as an atmospheric river. If it's coming from the Hawaiian Islands, then you can call it Pineapple Express, or you can call it whatever you want. Oregon sneaker wave claimed another victim. Is that the 43-year-old woman that was killed like 2 days ago, Ron Dog? Thanks for the generosity, by the way. I heard about that one. I think I heard about that first yesterday. People started commenting saying, oh, we had a fatality on the Oregon coast. So my plea to keep the deaths at 0 did not get answered. Yeah, it's another point too. If there's leaves coming off, those leaves block some of those drains and whatnot, and then you get a problem. You don't want that water. If you drop an inch of rain in a short amount of time and you're skipping drains, that can fly right into somebody's basement or start to wash away foundations, things like that. Corn Dog, thanks for the generosity. We're expecting some healthy rainfalls and some decent wind. So now this European model run here, you can kind of see that move up and across, and you can see it brings a pretty tight gradient across some of the Puget Sound. I mean, you're talking about 8 millibars from what? From Everett down towards some of Southwest Washington. That's a pretty tight gradient here coming up some of the Puget Sound right there. But now, let's see if I can I do, no, I don't think I will be able to get the now. But if we take a look at the pressure on the North American model, look at the difference here. You can see where the best pressure gradient is here across Western Oregon. On the European, it's a bit further north. So we still have some work to do to figure out where this is going to impact who the most. There was a bomb cyclone last summer. I don't remember when. We had a huge bomb cyclone in November. I remember that. Yeah, that's why you see a lot of driftwood like out in the Puget Sound. And sometimes when these rivers get raging, you know, that starts picking up those big logs and brings them down. And you do not want to be in the water when those logs are about. And same thing with boats too. You can run into those deadheads. I was on a ferry when I was little and we hit a huge waterlogged log and it hit the front of the ferry and swung up, and you heard a 1-2 punch, like boom, and then we just heard a boom from underneath the boat. Just this huge log got swung up and hit underneath the ferry. The ferry stopped and everything, and the captain came on and kind of explained what had happened. But I was just like, wow, that was really crazy. I must have been 10 years old or something. Thanks, Lightning Expert, for the generosity. Paddle Racing, welcome. How much snow? It depends on where you're going to be. I mean, if you can guess who gets what amount of snow, let me know, because I would love to be able to have that kind of insight on what's going to happen. I mean, on any given winter, you can get 0 in Seattle. You can get 20 plus inches. It's such an absolute crapshoot. The mountains, you're guaranteed snow. Just some years you get much more than others. The jet stream is indeed powering these storms. And here it is. This is where we are right about now. Powerful jet stream. Atmospheric rivers right here. Scroll for, in fact, I'm going to go to 300 millibars here. Atmospheric river. 300 millibars allows you to see the storm develop right there a little bit better at 300 millibars. You can kind of see that. That's Saturday's storm right there. And if I'm going back in the past here, or back in the future. Atmospheric river, wind potential on Saturday. See that curling up right here? Strong jet stream across the Pacific Ocean. We scroll further out, and then you can see the next storm developing out there. Yeah, that bomb cyclone last year was bad enough as it is. That was like 940 something millibar low, one of the closest ever to the coastline. So there was a rogue wave at North Jetty and Ocean Shores yesterday. Wow. A few injuries, and it made a mess. I wish I could have seen that. Thanks, everybody, for the kind words. Looks like we got about 650 people in the chat right now. Yeah, I wonder if anybody captured that wave on video. Somebody send that to me. Yeah, there's going to be more swings because, as I just showed, there's the North American model. You can see where it puts that low right across Southwest Washington. The European has that low all the way up into British Columbia. So yeah, we're going to be dealing with these kind of swings back and forth. Now I'm dying to see what the 0Z European model shows, but that's not going to be out here for another almost 3 hours. Thanks for the kind words, Jackie. Yeah, hopefully that got the word out to a lot of people. I mean, pretty destructive windstorm. When we were driving back from Enumclaw that night, it was crazy. Power out everywhere. Huge poles down, trees down, power lines. That was just nuts. They had road closures. We were taking detours and stuff. The power was out in my neighborhood all the way back towards SeaTac. I mean, it was just wild. Yeah, if anybody can tell me what link to look up, I'd like to look up that road. Well, maybe I'll just Google it here on the other one. Here, let's do Ocean Shores Rogue Wave. I see people talking about it here on Facebook. I mean, the Pacific Ocean is kind of nasty. I mean, it's a huge ocean. You got to imagine there's rogue waves that probably happen all the time. There's such a huge stretch of coast here in the Pacific Northwest. There's probably big rogue waves that people never see. Top Gorilla VR. Been a long time since good windstorm in Spokane. Yeah, probably just blustery this round. You're probably going to get some gusts up maybe to 40 miles per hour, something like that, but it shouldn't be too exceptionally windy. I would lose my marbles if I had to explain what an atmospheric river is 400,000 times. Which windstorm do you think was worse, 1981 or 1995? I remember the 1980. I remember both of them actually. I was living in I was living in Ballard at the time. We had huge pine trees in the front yard, and I just remember them getting absolutely thrashed in the 1981 storm. And I remember going to the nearby park, and yeah, there was tree damage, and I just remember it being crazy. It was just wild. The 1995 one was pretty good as well. The 81 struck me as a more severe blow, though, for Seattle. And the peak gust at SeaTac was 60, and then 1981 was 67. No, that's the funny thing about the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes you'll get sun and you're just like, it'll be only for a few minutes during some of these winter days. And you're just like, oh, wow, the sun's out for a second. Sometimes it happens like in the evening right before it sets. But yeah, you start to pay attention to how the sun doesn't show itself too much. Let's do this. Let's do the GFS and look at the 18. I forgot what it said. It's more in line with what the European is saying. Still a pretty strong pressure gradient across the Oregon coast, though. But yeah, batter up. Here goes that next atmospheric river. 614 people in the chat. My chair seems to be squeaking a lot here tonight. Yeah, the more live streams we can get around here, if you can get a live stream on your YouTube channel, I mean, if there's something going on, I'll tune in. If I go out to Shore Acres on Saturday, I'll be live streaming. Haven't decided where we're going to go yet. Depends on where the strongest winds are going to be, where the biggest waves are, and just exactly what's going on. Yeah, let's check that. Let's check go from Everett to Whidbey Island. You can see on Friday, this is the southeasterly wind here. There's some decent gusts coming across on the day Friday. This is the next storm there as we go through Saturday. You can kind of see the more uncertainty going on. Tornado Archive. Yeah, I've looked at that before. I always like to look at old storms. We had a pretty good tornado roll through Kent Valley in 1969, December 12, 1969. What I wouldn't have given to have seen that. I wasn't alive then, but my Tempest weather station gets enough in the winter to stay charged. If you got direct sunlight, you'll be fine. It's the problem is if you're getting shaded anytime during the day, the sun is so weak that you might need to get the accessory booster. Yeah, and just a reminder that Cape Disappointment, I think, is closed now on in through this winter. Inbox on Blue Sky. Okay, let me try that. Somebody broke their leg.
Yeah, huh?
So some of those waves were running up pretty good then. Yeah, that windstorm in February 1979, that's the Hood Canal Bridge windstorm. Took out the Hood Canal Bridge, 60 miles an hour in Seattle. Nice lee low on the northeast side of the Olympic Mountains. Absolutely savage windstorm. I think they're doing maintenance back there. That's why Cape Disappointment is closed, I believe. Thank you, Lightning Expert, for your gift. Yeah, December 2006. That was I remember watching that storm for days in advance. Even back in 2006, the models really did well with that storm. What a powerful storm that was. 69 miles per hour at SeaTac. So many trees down, so many power outages that people were poisoning themselves, using barbecues indoors and carbon weather in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, the Gig Harbor tornado there back in December of 2018. That was a beast. So yeah, if you guys are just joining, you can see that we've had, like, taking a look at the North American model, you can see we're still getting changes as we get closer to the storm. I mean, you can see the difference in the pressure gradient on the south side of the storms that approaches the Oregon coast and then the Willamette Valley. So I'm kind of curious to see, does the North American model know something that the European and the GFS don't? But even that being said, this is still a pretty good wind here across Western Washington and some of Oregon as well. So this would be about 48 at SeaTac or so, at 49 at Boeing Field. And so there is some decent winds rolling through in this scenario as well. Atmospheric river, category 4 in BC, 2, 3 up and down the Washington, Oregon coast. I'll back that up one so you guys can see that again. I'll close that one. Pretty good precipitation amounts moving across the region here. This is the artificial intelligence, the latest. And you can see we continue to pile up some rain as we go on in towards, this is November 2nd. We go through the 15-day time period and just some huge precipitation amounts. We are going to get some chillier air in here too as we go through the weekend. Where did I put the snow? Did I take it off? Well, let's back this up then. We're going to go to winter and we're going to go to snow depth. So as we go through the day Sunday, we're getting some of that mountain snow, and then we bring the colder air in aloft. And you can see some of that even across the lower portions of eastern Washington, even into some of the foothills. Some of the higher foothills may get some snow out of this. It shows some even getting closer to the I-5 corridor. That may be a resolution issue across some of Skagit and Whatcom County. But we are bringing some chilly air in aloft. Yeah, the Olympic velocity shear zone is a good one as well. You get what's known as the Olympic velocity shear zone when you're bringing southwest winds through the Chehalis Gap here. And then you get of course, you're in the lee of the Olympics here, and you get lesser winds, and you got the stronger southwesterly wind. You get a little bit of a pinwheel effect there. So if you're bringing in some colder air aloft and you've got some of these convective showers moving through that zone, they tend to rotate there. And that's one reason why that EF2 hit back in 2018, and it damaged a lot of stuff out there near Gig Harbor. Garrett Hartung got a gift membership. Nice. Yeah, we're dealing with a pretty good blow coming up here. It's not bad for some areas. Let me do this. We're looking at the latest European here. So as we go through the day on Friday, you can see we get some upper 40s for some of the coastal areas and also the Northwest Interior. Got to point that out as well. This is early Friday morning, maybe a gust up over 50 for some of the Northwest Interior. Bellingham getting a bit breezy there also. 32 in Seattle on Friday. And then as we go on in through Saturday, see the stronger winds approach? That's the main storm there. And you can see Seattle 48, Bellingham 47, some of the Willamette Valley up into the upper 40s, coastal areas, coastal range. Go on in through the day Sunday. And Spokane, you could be topping out in the 30s, maybe towards 40. But if we get 48 in Seattle, you're probably going to have some power outages. You're probably going to knock some branches down and maybe some trees onto power lines. So we really got to watch out for that on Saturday. So, those aren't bad wind speeds coming across the area there on Saturday. Another way I like to look at it is this. So if we back this up, this first round of wind is associated with that atmospheric river. You can really see it ramp up on Friday morning across the Northwest Interior and the coastal regions. Blustery elsewhere, pushes down the Oregon coast, and then we wait for the stronger storm to arrive. You can see it get windy on the coast, Northwest Interior a bit here as we go through the day Saturday. And then you see that surge kind of come up the Puget Sound here as well as you go through Saturday afternoon. Willamette Valley, bent back occlusion, trying to make its way towards the Oregon coast, towards Long Beach. And then we really get windy there Saturday night across some of the Puget Sound. That's when the biggest gusts would probably come. Yeah, this is a different scenario than the bomb cyclone last year. That one was a big deep blow out over the ocean there that really brought a very powerful east wind through the mountain gaps. We had a stable layer above it, so we had these propagating waves coming down, just doing a lot of damage. This is a southwesterly wind event, so this is a different setup. Not as strong as last year's bomb cyclone. Try to catch up on some of the chat here. Yeah, and that's another thing that got brought up earlier in the chat where we're getting some pretty heavy rainfall before the wind comes in. So that could help loosen some things up and bring down some weakened trees. It's tough to get trees uprooted, and it's not like we've been dealing with a couple weeks of rain. I don't know how much an inch or two will do to uproot trees, but it is a possibility. Yeah, you'll definitely have some crazy stuff going on Saturday. You'll have missed approaches and things like that. So what it does is the plane takes another loop around and then lands. And it's usually fine. You'll miss an approach, and then things will get spaced out. So there'll be some delays, but it's always kind of hard to say. I don't like to just say it's not that big of a deal because it can be. I mean, it's kind of a pain to land in really gusty wind, especially, you're tight on, you're an air traffic controller, and then you're trying to space in these guys that are missing approach. You got to bring those back around in the pattern and try to have them land again. And the longer the big gusts go on, the more difficult it can be. It's usually okay unless you got a really big windstorm, though. Yeah, this is not like a windstorm that we usually get. The contributing factors here is because you have leaves on trees and whatnot. That's really a big thing. And it's one of the early season winds where, you get summer trees die during the summertime, and there's been some effects of drought, and some branches die and some trees are on their way out. And so when you get these first winds of the season, you can really take down all that dead stuff. And again, you're dealing with a lot of sails on the tree limbs and branches, and it can bring all that stuff down. Wednesday through Friday, there may be another storm coming and probably some additional rain chances as we go on into next week. So here, let me back out. So here's Saturday's storm right there. Another system moving into the Oregon, northern California coast there, continuing some rainfall. Going into Tuesday, and a deeper low is likely, it seems like, out there. And so that could be bringing additional frontal system there as we go through the day. Wednesday, there's Wednesday late morning, pretty powerful low associated with that storm. Then you go on in through Thursday morning right there. And it wants to bring almost like another atmospheric river as we go on in towards the end of the following week. But we'll try to put that off as long as we can. But you can see precipitation kind of stays active. Then maybe a little bit of a break there, but still some storms pretty close by. So yeah, pretty active pattern as we go through early November. Lightning expert, thank you for your generosity. Yeah, some of the big storms are like that. I see that Evan comment about missing approach. Yeah, I was training somebody on the December 2014 storm, which brought huge gusts to Seattle and Portland and Bellingham. We tried to land at Seattle. We had an issue and we couldn't. We tried to go to Bellingham and then we got flaps blowback. And that's can make things even more difficult to land. We couldn't land at Bellingham. We had to come all the way back down, and we're getting low there on fuel, and we landed in SeaTac. So yeah, it can get really crazy during the big windstorms here. But that's not to say really that things are unsafe. I mean, planes have contingency fuel, so it's not like if you just miss approach, you're going to run out of fuel and you're going to have to land on the freeway or something like that. We have ways to do things. I mean, you got flight dispatchers looking at things for a reason. You see the big wind gusts have passed Portland and now they're impacting Seattle. So then you know that you got Portland in your back pocket and you can go to Portland because the wind gusts have died down there. And so the same thing with a lot of times when Bellingham's getting hit with the really high winds, Seattle isn't at that point. So there's always some place to go. So I don't want to scare people off from flying or anything like that. Things are very well planned. These planes have a lot of fuel. They can, it's a very safe thing overall. It's just way more safe than driving anywhere. Yeah, Alaska's always a fun adventure trying to fly in Alaska in the winter. Pilots are so good though up there. They really know the airports really well. Very professional. 550 people in the chat. If you're just joining, there's our atmospheric river out across the Gulf of Alaska. We are in La Nina conditions officially right now. Will it end up being a La Nina winter officially? Not sure. But, it never hurts to be in La Nina. It can be a good thing for the mountain snows especially. And it's usually a better thing versus El Nino in the lower elevations. You can see the propagation of the jet stream as we go through the next few days, and there would be our Saturday windstorm. That little kink in the jet stream right there. That's what we're watching, and we still don't know exactly how that low is going to track and who's going to get the strongest winds from it, but it does look potentially windy here for some locations. It is not the big one, but it can definitely do some damage. There's our atmospheric river, Saturday storm. System moves into Oregon. Got to watch this one across California and some of southern Oregon for some strong winds with that as well. And some additional rounds of some pretty decent precipitation. Got to watch that storm close. Then we got to watch this one. Another powerful low moves up towards Vancouver Island. Probably the strongest of the bunch, but it looks to stay far enough away from, Seattle and Portland. You got to watch it though, because that pressure gradient is a little bit close. And after that, who knows? Another atmospheric river. What, we're looking too far off in the crystal ball at that point. Thanks, Ron Dog and Garrett, for kicking the spammers out. I'm going to hide user in this channel. We're going to go to Macy and we're going to go to hide user in this channel. So thanks, you guys. That was very good. Yeah, there is. Yeah, I keep forgetting. I mentioned it once here earlier, but let's take a look here. So this is the artificial intelligence. You'll notice there's the atmospheric river that moves through, but there's Saturday's system there. It does bring a little bit of instability with it. In fact, let's switch this up to the European and we'll take a look at Cape. And you'll see there is some convective available potential energy with that colder air arriving on Saturday. So yeah, there's a thunderstorm or two potentially. I haven't looked to see what kind of winds we're dealing with that. Is there any kind of coastal tornado threat? There's probably some, but it's always small, almost always. Yeah, Garrett says check out the Hodo. So let's take a look here real quick. Astoria. Let's go out to Saturday. So we're scrolling through here. If you guys don't know what this is the same thing as these winds here. You can see the winds out of the south turning westerly with height or southwesterly with height. And the hodographs kind of show you the speed and the direction of those winds just by a glance here. Now, we're going through Friday. And did you notice that if I scroll back and forth, toggle a little bit further off into late Friday night, see how the atmosphere kind of cools down a bit there? And then again, as we go into Saturday, you start to cool things off even a hair more as we go through the day Saturday. We get any Cape on the European there at all? Doesn't show too much. There we go. There's a little bit of a profile, but that's later on Saturday. So yeah, I don't know. And the winds aren't favorable then as well. So maybe the instability will not match up with those winds, but this isn't that bad of a hodograph really, because you get a bit of southeasterly component, then southerly, and then it turns westerly above that. So I don't know. There's Saturday at 1. I mean, you're getting some turning in the atmosphere there. And there is a little bit of Cape. So I guess it's in the realm of possibility. Yeah, let's check out. Yeah, you're getting some southerlies there on Saturday morning. Westerlies aloft, cooling it down. It's not a lot of Cape, but the thing about when tornadoes happen in the Pacific Northwest, it's usually not that readily apparent. You kind of show some of the signs of there being some instability and there's some wind shear aloft or some turning. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you've got, oh, look, a tornado swept through Southwest Washington, or a tornado was spotted in the Willamette Valley or whatever. Yeah, there is actually some wind potential there for Weed, California, Northern California, as you go through this weekend. I'll show you a little bit of that here, actually. So there's Saturday's storm here for the Pacific Northwest. And then this system out here, you got to keep your eye on that there. That's not a bad pressure gradient coming across Northern California. Can you guys see that? Or should I zoom in a little bit more? Let's just go to Northwest. That pressure gradient right there. And if you go to, actually, let's bring it up on the European, see what it shows. It shows a little different there in the European model. So yeah, not a bad pressure gradient. We'll go to surface wind. And this will probably give us a better reading on that. You can see that system may be packing a little bit of a punch there, but we'll see. We're still a little ways away from that. And this system is going to be very fickle. No Puget Sound lowland snow, really. I mean, you might get some in the foothills and northern zones as they go through this weekend into early next week. Not all our tornadoes are wimpy, but most of them are. $500 people still in the chat. How many thumbs up did we end up getting? You can see Saturday's low pressure center sitting there. You can also see the stronger winds on Friday from the atmospheric river as that pushes south. I wish the European model ran sooner. I'd stay and try to wait up for it, but it'll be fun to watch it come in later tonight, though. Saturday's storm system probably bringing some winds to the Oregon coast very early Saturday morning. Winds pick up across the interior later in the morning, and then afternoon and evening is going to be pretty blustery, as you can see, for some of the Willamette Valley and western Washington, some of the interior zones. I mean, other places do get cold core tornadoes. But yeah, that is what we get sometimes here. I mean, we get a lot of cold air funnels. Usually our tornadoes are more of a novelty, but there's some occasions when they are pretty strong. I mean, we had tornadoes actually kill people in Vancouver, Washington, 1972. We had big damage with the Gig Harbor tornado in 2018. So it can happen here. Yeah, Long Beach, you might get some good winds. If you want to do some wind and wave watching, it's not a bad storm to be doing that. I'm getting some spam bots in here. That must mean the channel's getting, or the page is getting kind of popular, or the chat. DP Bricks Extra. This Seahawks are on a bye this week, right? Yeah, we're still waiting for that big region-wide windstorm. It's been a while. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap up the video here. Hopefully you guys had some fun. I'll do my normal briefings tomorrow. I'll be back to work Thursday and Friday, Alaska Airlines, and then I'm off on the weekend. So I may be out chasing on Saturday, but I'll do my normal briefings Thursday, Friday morning, probably be out chasing on the day Saturday. So if I don't do a briefing, I will be coming on live at some point. What else? Yeah, thanks to my moderators, Ron Dog, Garrett Hartung, for kicking those guys to the curb. That was very nice. Yeah, I'll hopefully the model runs show us something tonight and we start to get some consolidation. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks everybody again.